So, I am super excited to be interviewing you, Allyn. You are just an exceptional human being. I think that the message that you have to share specifically around mental health is going to really provide some very important support for people who have, come across this video, because I know even just watching your small TED Talk, which is amazing, by the way, you guys should totally check it out. There are so many nuggets of wisdom and candor and humor, and your perspective on life is absolutely amazing. I think anyone could learn a lot from you. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on this interview with a team, and we're super, super excited to have you on board.
Well, thank you so much. Again, you guys are giving me such a big head, and when you say all of these sweet things, I really appreciate it, and it's an honor to be speaking with you guys today.
Oh, thank you. So we're going to kick it off with some questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, what triggered your mental health struggles, and how did you know that something was wrong?
Well, I think similar to a lot of people, the times that I've really struggled with my mental health have been situational in nature. So something bad has happened, I've gone through a rough time, and that's when it's kind of hard to pull yourself out of that dark place. And for me particularly, I think one of the most challenging moments of my life was right after I had undergone my double mastectomy. I just had this radical surgery. I went through 3 different reconstructive surgeries after that, and 1 month after I finished my reconstruction, I moved to Frankfurt, Germany. So I left my hometown, everything that I knew in Washington, D.C. area, and moved to Germany with my my husband, who was my then boyfriend. So now looking back at it, I think, what a crazy person to just pick up and move, but I really just was looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, I think, and I didn't really realize how difficult it would be. So to get here, to leave my language, my culture, to really be looking at myself with a new body, and it was a time in my life where I can say I was in a very dark place, and I always describe it like I felt like I was pushing a boulder up a mountain, and I was never going to get there. I was never going to get to the top. And I think a lot of people can relate to those feelings when you're just so overwhelmed. It's not one thing, it feels like a million things. And I think that's when you really need to take a step back, evaluate what's going on in your life, and take those baby steps to really pull yourself out of wherever you are.
Wow, yeah, I can totally relate. Even when I was going through my struggles too, it's that boulder analogy of like something that's so heavy that doesn't feel like you're going to get through. So yeah, and just taking that one small step at a time is like so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're lucky enough to have a positive support system, that really can change things for you.
Yeah, wow. Yes, that is very, very important and very true. I agree with that, because when I was going through my struggles too, my support system was everything.
Yeah.
Who did you go to when you were struggling, and how did they help you? Like, if there wasn't someone to go to, what held you back from reaching out, and what could the people in your life have done or said to get you to talk about it with them, like talking about support systems?
I think what was hard for me was realizing that I was in the place that I was at, because I've always been a really positive person. I've been through some tough things. I lost my mom when I was 16. I'd gone through this surgery. I'd lost a lot of family members, and I'd really taken those experiences, I think, in stride, and been able to move on relatively, you don't want to say easily or quickly, but I felt pretty resilient. So it took a while for me to really realize that I was in a place that was different. This was a situation where I was really struggling, and I didn't even know about it. So I think it took a few friends pointing out to me that I wasn't really being myself, and they didn't see that kind of fire within me that I had before. And so I took a step back, and I said, yeah, okay, I'm not okay right now, and there are some things in my life that need to change so that I can move past this. And I was really lucky to have a wonderful, supportive husband who gave me the freedom to really try new things. And I mean, that was the big thing coming to Germany. My life wasn't the same. And so I didn't have the same career, I didn't have the same friends, I didn't really have the same direction in life. So that was something where I had to try out a couple new things, and I feel like, hey, I'm in my late 20s, I feel like I'm starting life over, and the simplest things like going to the grocery store or being in a restaurant and having to order something, I felt like a toddler learning to speak again, building up the courage to ask for things in my broken German. And so having him as a support system that gave me the flexibility to really figure out who I was here was important. And then making new friends. And I think that's hard in your late 20s and your early 30s, particularly if you're not in a lot of social situations where you're running into people like that. It's hard. It's hard to make friends, and I think you spend your whole life looking. My dad always says 5 friends. If you're lucky, if you got a handful of friends. So I spent my life building those girlfriends, and to find new ones was tough. But I was very lucky to find them here, and they were the ones that really built me up and helped me define a new side of myself.
Wow, that is amazing and so inspiring, even for me as a 19-year-old. Like, I feel like that even relates to being a teenager too, because we're trying to build these, this handful of really great quality friends, and the fact that you were able to do that in this situation you were in, that was so challenging. Like, not speaking the language, being in your late 20s, all of that. If you can do that and have this extraordinary support system and group of gal friends, and obviously in your husband as well, I think that that's so much inspiration for us as teens and young adults to see that it's so possible to find that support and get that support and make new friends and find that new friend group if that is what's required in that moment in our lives. I think that's amazing. That takes so much courage on your end.
No, certainly, and I think I was a bit of a loner growing up, and I didn't really realize just how important it was to have great friends, because you really do have moments in your life where you need to lean on people like that. And I think that's one of the tough things is letting other people help you. At least it was for me. I had always been so independent. So to reach out to people and say, hey, I need help and I need a friend to lean on, or let's just go grab a cup of coffee, get my mind off of things. That was important. And I feel very fortunate that the world is really not so big. And that's something that I've learned living abroad. You think people come from different countries, different cultures. You realize we're pretty much the same, and you can always find something to relate to somebody with. And so that was, I think, a life skill that I learned going through this whole process was identifying those things, not identifying the things that make us different, but identifying the things that make us the same.
Wow. Yeah, that's like so important too, because like as human beings, I think we all want connection and we want to avoid that like rejection. That's so scary, I think, and especially that can be very difficult and challenging for someone who's not well or doesn't feel themselves. That's like, oh, like what are people going to think of me, or no one's going to want to hang out with me because I don't feel myself. So yeah, I think that that's great that you did that despite what you were going through at the time. I think that's really amazing, and I know that whoever's watching, if you're in high school or young adult or even in that specific situation, like you can totally, all it takes is courage. Like you don't need to be 100% to be able to find amazing friends and a support system. So thanks definitely for that, because that's so important.
And I think too, looking outside of who you would normally get along with is important. I remember, this seems so silly, but one of the the turning points in my experience here, I was sitting at a Starbucks, which is the only place I wanted to go because I knew they would speak English, so I could at least order my coffee in English. And I heard these two girls speaking English, and they were just chatting about this and that. And I ended up talking to them, and they were, I think, 16 and 17 at the time. And I said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm this creepy old person who is reaching out to you in the middle of a Starbucks in a foreign country, but can we just chat for a minute? It's been so long since I've spoken to someone who speaks my language, because people here, they speak English, but it's just not the same when people have this the same culture and, I don't know, idioms and things like that. So I had this hour and a half long conversation with these young girls. We exchanged Instagram handles, we became friends, and it just made me realize that, yeah, there's, you can make friends anywhere, and sometimes it just takes the courage to reach out and say hi. And obviously, as a woman in my late 20s, my friend group wasn't necessarily 16-year-olds, but I found these incredibly wise, well-traveled, inspirational young women just sitting at a little coffee shop.
That's amazing. I love that. Anything's possible for us, we can even
Absolutely.
in our local coffee shop.
Absolutely. So thanks, Starbucks. If you want to sponsor us or my team, let us know.
Yes, please. What are the best resources you've found in supporting your mental health so far? Like friends, family, YouTube videos, books? Like, was it the online space? We talked about your friend group has been amazing. Was there anything online for you personally that helped you, or books? What was that for you?
I would say really the social media movement around supporting mental health issues. And having so many friends have the courage to really speak out and say that they were struggling at some point in their life, or that they battle with depression, or any sort of thing. That gave me a lot of, I would say, a lot of comfort, knowing that I wasn't the only person out there that was struggling at the moment, or having a hard time, or feeling sad. And so, it's really, I think, hold on, we've got the puppy here. We're going to put him down for a second.
Oh my God.
He gets a little camera time.
So precious.
Yeah, I would say, just people who had the courage to speak up and to say, this is something I think that everyone really struggles with at some point in their life, and that we need to be supportive of each other. And the more that we talk about it, the more we normalize it. And that's important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Stigmas end when conversation is, everyone's fluent in talking about mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how has your perspective changed on mental health over time? Like, I know when we were talking last time, you said that you never realized that and you actually just said now, as a happy person, that you could become sad or that sort of thing. Like, how now, where you are now, how has that perspective changed and evolved? Like, I love your candor and humor. It's absolutely lovely. I just love to hear what you think about that.
No, I certainly think that going through something like this, it makes you more apathetic and open-minded. When even if you have close friends that struggle with things like this, if you've never experienced it yourself, it's easy to dismiss. It's easy to say, just get over it, put a smile on your face, be happy. But when you experience it for yourself, and you really do get to dark places in your life where you think, oh man, am I really ever going to get past this moment? Am I ever going to feel like myself again? I think you're able to better relate to people. And going through it, I don't think it necessarily makes you an expert. You're not going to be able to relate to anybody, but just knowing what somebody else is going through, or saying, hey, it might not be exactly what I was going through, but I get that feeling. It's really changed for me and made me want to be more of an advocate and a voice for people who are going through something like this, because it's important to talk about, and it's important for other people to know that even the person that you see on Instagram, on Facebook, on television, who may seem happy, like they've got their whole life together, all these amazing things are happening to them, they might not be so happy, and that's okay. I think it's okay to put on a happy face and to be positive, but it's also important to talk about when you're not in such a great place.
Yeah, I totally agree, because that kind of lifts the veil of perfection. I think that, social media does tends to perpetuate, and I know you're such an aspirational person, and I know even myself, like, as just, coming across you, you're definitely someone that I look up to, and that I know women my age for sure look up to, and just people in general would look up to. And hearing your story and hearing, how your life hasn't been perfect. There has been struggle, but how you have overcome that, whatever that is, and whatever that's been in your life, that those many adversities you've had, how you've overcome that, I think is super, super encouraging, because not only have you gotten through it, but you have such an amazing attitude about it. You haven't grown bitter or resentful because of the things that have happened. I think it's amazing to see someone who has such strength and still, a sense of humor, and I think it's just so amazing. And I think, for people who are watching, Allyn is a great person to model after. If you haven't checked out her blog, you have to read it, because her voice is amazing in the blog, and I'm so inspired every time I read it, and it's just the best. So yeah, I really love that, Allyn. That's amazing.
Well,
That's amazing.
thank you so much for saying that. And it's always crazy to me to hear that people actually read my blog, because I write it so much just for me to get things off of my head, or something I think is funny, try to put it out there. And I always think, okay, if one person reads it, great. But if not, at least I have it for myself. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's okay to be an aspirational figure.
Yes.
And I think that's great, because it's motivating for people. But at the same time, I think it's important to let people know that social media so often is just a highlight reel, and that's all it is. And we can't judge ourselves exclusively on how we compare to other people, because it's all fake, between filters, people just putting on a happy face. I mean, it's normal to not be happy all the time, and that's okay. So, put the positivity out in the universe, but you also have to open up and be real about things sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree, and you're great with that on Instagram too. Like, Allyn, I was following Allyn long before we were doing these interviews, and I was always cracking up on her posts, or just in awe of it. It's quite a lovely. You have quite that lovely balance between aspiration and realness and reality. And I think even within our own circles of friends and within our own social media, it's great to think about that, and to think about why we're posting and what we're posting about. And on the subject of humor, I'm fascinated with your humor, because you're hilarious. How has humor played a role in dealing with your struggles? Like, what role has your humor played in your life?
Oh, gosh, I think it's so important to be able to laugh, period, and then also laugh at yourself.
Yes.
So I have a very, I think, self-deprecating sense of humor, and it helps me in social situations, times when I feel a little bit awkward, or that I don't know what I'm doing. And it's so funny to think about the things that I've been able to do in my life, like the last couple months working with Sports Illustrated, and to get to model and go to Miss America, go to Miss USA. I was not that girl growing up. And I guess it's putting those girls into a box. They're not. These women are dynamic and amazing, but a lot of them were the homecoming queen. They were the prom queen. They grew up, and they've always been that girl.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me. I was the person at the lunch table that nobody wanted to sit next to. I was the offbeat kid. I played guitar in a punk rock band. I always kind of floated from place to place, and I really struggled with finding where I fit, what my niche was. And I think humor was the way that I was able to break out of those boundaries that I had really placed for myself and get to know other people. So if I was making fun of me, other people couldn't make fun of me. And so that was something that I really took with me throughout my whole life. And then I think when you get to this point where, you do have these great opportunities like going to Miss USA, going to Miss America, I think being able to make fun of yourself makes people feel more comfortable around you. And I say, hey, look, I am not that stereotypical pageant girl who's had this beautiful, shiny life leading up to this. There have been challenges, and this is how I've taken these problems in my life and had them transition me to the next chapter. And I guess humor has just been really an avenue for me to do that. And so either seeing people who are funny, who are able to make fun of themselves, making fun of myself, or seeing kind of the humor in the world, I think is important and has certainly helped me.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I totally agree with you. Humor is the best medicine, I think. Like, I try to make a goal of like getting at least like a laugh in a day with my family or friends. Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. You guys have to read Allyn's blog. Like, I know I'm saying it again, but like, she's hilarious.
Well, thank you so much for these plugs. And I remember when I started my blog, I did that over here in Germany. It was the first time I ever wrote because I thought, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I'm feeling a little lost here. So I just started writing about the things that I thought were really silly in my life. Going to the grocery store, trying to figure out the names of all the different foods and things like that, or weird German laws, which there are tons of them. So it was things like that where I saw humor in my own life, and I said, okay, I'm going to type this out because I think it's hilarious, and if one person in the blogosphere sees it and finds it funny, then I've done my job here.
Yeah, totally. You've totally done your job there. That I had to share that one with my mom, the one on the German grocery store. Oh, it's a good one. It's funny. So what is the most important thing you think we can do for our mental health that you would recommend? It could be something you do even.
Oh man, I think it's really important to have hobbies. And I know that sounds a little silly, but I've really focused on developing my hobbies as an adult now. I guess I can call myself an adult. And I've realized just how important they were in being able to clear my mind. So I feel like I am an 80-year-old woman stuck in a 30-year-old's body because I love to do crafting, and I have a Cricut maker machine, and I think it has totally changed my mental health space.
Wow.
Because no matter what's going on in my life, if I have a stressful day, if I'm angry at my husband, if my dog just chewed up my shoes, I can go into my office, I hop onto my computer, and I just make a little craft. And whether I do it as a gift for a friend, or I make something funny for myself, or I'm able to send out a gift card to somebody, it takes my mind off of whatever struggles I'm having in my day-to-day life, and it focuses me on something positive and something that I enjoy doing. So I would say that's something that's very important for me to be able to recharge, reboot the way that my head's wired into something positive. And whenever I walk away from it, even if I've had the worst day ever, at least I've created something. I've brought some sort of beauty or usefulness into the world. And so that has been something that's really invaluable for me.
Wow, I love that so much. And that is so true. Like, having those hobbies, I can totally relate. Being like, when I was dancing, dance was my release from whatever was going on, and it still is to this day, even though I'm not a competitive dancer anymore. But just day to day having that dance, or even sending gifts. I love sending gifts. Like those on your text. Those are always a good hobby thing. But yeah, I love that. You're so unique too. I love the knitting and the crochet. That's amazing.
No, I'm think such a weirdo when it comes to things like that. I think I came from another generation. I've been reincarnated from some other place, because really all of my hobbies, I like puzzling, I like crafting. They're all old lady hobbies.
Oh my god.
I think maybe I'm just preparing myself for later in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find all those things so therapeutic because, silly as it is, I mean, you're looking at a puzzle, and even if the day was horrible, it sucked, you're able to pick up one more piece, and if you find out where it goes, you're one step closer to accomplishing something.
Yeah.
And it's those little tiny things, I think, that help pull you out of a dark place. And at least they did for me, knowing that, hey, I finished half of my puzzle today.
Yeah.
I've done something. So even if I feel out of control in other aspects of my life, at least I've done that.
Oh my gosh, Allyn, I totally agree. I feel like I've been reading this other book lately, and they talk about how you have to overcome, that unsureness. I think we all feel from time to time. Like, we're not all happy all the time. To overcome that is to have a purpose you can measure. And even if that's just finishing that puzzle or like knitting some of that crochet, like, you feel accomplished and you have control over some area of your life. And that is so, so important for us as human beings. Like, I just came back from vacation, and for me, I was like, to do a shower in 5 minutes, like get my shower done in 5 minutes. And like that, like when I did it done in 5 minutes, I felt so good about myself because I had control over at least, whatever was going on in the day, even on vacation. I was like, at least I got my 5-minute shower. That I have control over. Like, it's so simple, but it's so, so, so important. So thank you for sharing that, because for those of you guys watching, it is so, so important to have that. And I'm sure you guys already have that in your life. Just continue to have that every day, to have something that gives you that sense of control, like Allyn said, and that's genuinely enjoyable for you, and it'll give you that feeling of, like you said, you want to bring that youthfulness and beauty and feeling of accomplishment into your day. If nothing else goes right, at least that can, because you have control over it, which is amazing.
And I think one more thing, now that I'm thinking about it, that was really useful for me was list making. And I think list making can also be dangerous because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there writing, okay, I want to do my taxes, I want to do this, and then you end up with this enormous list, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, okay, now my life is really out of control, and I'm not going to be able to accomplish this.
Right.
So I have a girlfriend, Jordan Page, and she has an amazing social media following. I think it's just at Jordan Page, and she has a company called Fun Cheaper Free, and so she does all of these thrifting and saving money sort of things. But one time she mentioned on Instagram, make these manageable lists where, say, maybe you just pick one thing that you want to accomplish during the day. So maybe it's do the dishes. And if doing the dishes seems totally overwhelming, it's put 5 plates into the dishwasher.
Right.
And hey, I can put 5 plates into the dishwasher. And she told me to make these little lists where you're like, okay, checkbox 1 dish. Checkbox 1 dish. And so then you're going through and you're ticking off all of these things, and it's that really satisfying, okay, like I've done the 1 dish. And those little compartmentalized to-do lists, I think, are very useful, because then, again, you're seeing yourself ticking the boxes, and it doesn't seem so overwhelming anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for sharing that, because that's so true. Just that little tick off that box, that is a real, I don't know, is it an endorphin boost or dopamine? I don't know which one it is.
Probably like a good dopamine release. Yeah, it's just like seeing those little likes come up on social media. You get that little bit of a rush. So doing that, just ticking those boxes and making it something that's, even if it's so tiny and it seems so silly, like, okay, yes, of course, I can put 1 dish into the dishwasher. But if you do that, you realize how positive you're starting to feel just from the act of accomplishing something.
Yep. What is something no one is talking about right now related to mental health that you'd like to hear more of, or that you'd like to share?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it would be how day-to-day struggles can really impact how your life is going, and how it's easy to get overwhelmed. And I think particularly the older you get, the more responsibilities that you have. And it's not just responsibilities that have been placed on you, but responsibilities that you place on yourself. And I think it's important talk to people about managing personal expectations. I know for me, getting close to 30, and I write about this on my blog, how terrifying this number was, because I had built up all of these things in my mind that I should have accomplished by the time I turned 30. You know, I should have had a child. I should be in my dream job. You know, I should be married. I should have X, Y, and Z on this little life bucket list of where I should be. And I think it's important to talk about how life doesn't always go on that perfect timeline. And you really shouldn't be setting, it's good to goal set, but if you get to a point in your life where you haven't accomplished X, Y, and Z by some arbitrary date that you had set for yourself, it's okay. And I think the more people talk about things like that, the easier it makes it, because I know how many quarter life crisis, 30-year crises that all of my friends are having, and I see it like it's almost like clockwork. The closer people get to 25 to 30 to 35 to 40, the crazier people start to feel, because they think, oh gosh, I should have accomplished what have you. And so I think managing expectations for your life is an important thing for us to continue to talk about, and to realize that generations change and people's expectations for life change, and that's okay. That's just a part of us evolving as people.
Yeah, my gosh, I totally agree, because even, you know, as a teen, I have those fears too, like, oh gosh, I should already have this by this age, or this by that age, or so-and-so's got this, why don't I have that? Yeah, it's so true that, like, I guess what has helped you the most through that, like all those fears, and like I know you take, you know, you're always taking action, you're always doing something, and I'm sure that helps, because you know that you're at least, you know, moving yourself forward. If you're not where you are yet, you're at least moving yourself forward. But what else have you done to help with those, to overcome those fears, I guess, or that help you with those fears?
Well, I would like to say that I'm really focused, like you said, and I'm always taking these steps. And I think it's true to a certain extent. I think I'm a bold person, and I'm constantly taking new risks. But to be honest, a big part of it is just getting to that place where there's no return, and then realizing, whew, I'm okay. And I think 30 was like that. It was this scary, terrifying number, and how was my life going to change? And then, you know, the clock strikes midnight, and poof, I'm magically 30. And then you realize, I'm not any different. I'm the exact same person that I was the day before. And I think a lot of times in life, it just takes getting to those scary moments and either being, you know, pushed off the deep end into it, or just taking the step yourself and realizing you are okay on the other side of things. So, you know, I'm not somebody who's got it all figured out. I'm not constantly making these positive affirmations in my life and moving to the next step. Sometimes I just have to really fall off the cliff and somehow land on 2 feet at the bottom. So I think... I love that. Yeah, that's just how life goes sometimes. You know, you can prepare all you want, but sometimes you just got to do it.
I think that's amazing, Allyn, too, because it's just important to recognize that as a fact. Like, we're going to be thrown in, I'm sure you guys watching are already in the boat of either being thrown into the deep end involuntarily or voluntarily. Either way, it's gonna happen. But that's great. I love just embracing it and just being like, all right, being bold and having the courage to just face it and do it. I love that.
Well, I think too, people, there's such a negative connotation around the word opportunist. And I always think it's such a negative thing, because we're all going through tough things in our lives, and we have these trials and we have these tribulations, and it's okay to take those negative things in your life and use them to better yourself or to talk about a topic. I mean, I got my feelings really hurt when I started doing pageants, and I was talking and I was advocating about breast cancer awareness and discussing my mom's journey with cancer and her losing her life. And someone said, she's just a nasty opportunist who's used her mother's death to help her win beauty pageants. And
Oh my God.
I took this step back, and I'm sitting here reading this on an online forum, which you should never read those things, but of course, young and stupid. And I'm reading it, and for a second, I literally thought to myself, oh my God, am I an opportunist? Am I doing this? Am I using my mother's death to help advance me in these things? And it took a long time before I realized it's okay to use those challenges and those trials in your life to move you to the next step, because you're being an opportunist to better yourself. And you're not doing that at the expense of other people. This is your story and this is your journey. And as long as you're being open and honest and true about the things that have happened in your life, it is okay to use those things to move on to a new place, or to give yourself a platform to be able to advocate for these things. So once I was able to say that to myself, hey, when I talk about my mom passing away, this is my life and this happened to me, and I deserve to be able to speak about this and have positive things come in my life as a result of this. And I think that's okay. And the same thing with, mental health struggles or whatever people are going through. It's okay to talk about them and have positive things come from those experiences. It's 100% okay. Use those trials to better yourself.
I loved what you were talking about, and how taking responsibility for what you've been through and sharing that is so important. And I love that you said that, because it's therapeutic in the process as well.
No, certainly. And I think there are always going to be people who are negative when you're putting yourself out there and you're talking about something challenging that's happened to you, and particularly when you get something positive out of it. And so that you shouldn't let that discourage you from being an advocate and speaking your truth and putting yourself out there, because like you said, it really is a therapeutic thing. And I thought, man, I really have gotten past the passing of my mother, and I've moved on to the next chapter of my life. But when I was Miss DC and I was really traveling the country speaking about the loss of my mom and deciding to have a preventive double mastectomy, I realized just how challenging it was to say it over and over again every day. My mom is dead, my mom is dead, my mom is dead. And you'd think you'd get to a point it had almost been 10 years since my mom had passed away, but just saying those words all the time was a challenging thing. And it became almost like therapy for me to be able to constantly discuss it with different people in new crowds, and realizing that, my mom's life wasn't in vain, that her story was resonating with other people, and it was helping me save my own life by having this preventive surgery.
Wow.
And so I always encourage people, get out there, talk about it. It has been the most wonderful experience for me to not only heal myself, but to realize that there are so many other people in the same situation, and you are representative for somebody, and somebody out there needs to hear exactly the message that you're sharing.
Yeah, Allyn, I so agree, because when I heard your story, your mom reminded me of my mom's mother who passed away from cancer. And yeah, it's so true. So true. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for all that you do with sharing, having that courage to share and talk about it, because, it's so interesting too, because, there's so many people I find inspiring. You're clearly one of them. And it's so funny to me too, how I've read a lot of your blogs or your TED Talk or whatever, and I've never commented or anything like that, but still it's impacted me. And I guess it's important for even people who are watching to know too, you just don't know whose lives you're changing. The people who are commenting or sharing your stuff, they're clearly impacted, but then there's that whole group of people who never say anything or comment on it, but they're totally taking it in and receiving what you have.
No, that's so important. I'm getting emotional just listening to you say that, because it's so true. And people are always so quick to say when you're open about speaking about things, they say, oh, you're so brave to do these sort of things. And I don't consider myself brave at all. I consider myself like, this is just what I'm supposed to do because I was given this platform, and how dare I not talk about it? And then, there are people who will reach out to me, and there's one, and I always tell this story because it was really the turning point in my feeling completely comfortable sharing my story. I had this woman reach out to me on Facebook, and she said, I saw you on Good Morning America today. And she said, I have the breast cancer gene mutation. My sister died of breast cancer. And for a long time, I've been struggling with whether or not to have this surgery. And I kept thinking, what will my body look like? What will my husband think? Will I ever like what I see in the mirror? And she said, I turned on the TV, and here's this 24-year-old girl talking about being alive for her future children, her future husband, and giving up her 24-year-old body to be healthy for all of these things that she doesn't have yet. And she said, here I am with my own kids and my own husband, and I just scheduled the surgery with my doctor, and you might have just saved my life.
Oh my God.
And just reading those things, and it, no matter how many times I tell it, it gets me teary-eyed, because you think about all of those people out there, like you said, who may not comment, who may not write to you, whose lives the message is touching. And it really has nothing to do with you. It's the message, and it's putting it out there, and being a catalyst for a greater conversation about whatever it is you're discussing. And it's so important. And that's why, just speaking up, whether you're sharing with a friend, whether you're sharing with millions of people on stage or in your high school auditorium, just talking about things gives people a lot of comfort. And it can really galvanize people to make positive changes in their life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I totally agree, Allyn, and yeah. So thank you for sharing, because my mom just recently, actually why I connected with you was because I saw your self-examgram on Instagram. If you guys haven't checked that hashtag out, you have got to check it out. And join the movement that Allyn has started, which is like awesome. And my mom her mom passed away from breast cancer, and there's like 8 people on my mom's 8 women on my mom's side of the family who have passed away from breast cancer. And my mom was deciding whether or not to get her double mastectomy, and it's been like a 3-year decision. And she had just gotten her double mastectomy when I came across your page. And you were such a source of hope and light for me and my mom, because I saw just your beauty on the inside and the outside and what was possible for my mom. So thank you for that, because like you said, it's just, you just don't know. You just don't know who's watching and who's like...
Well, you're making me tear up over here. I don't like to cry. I'm not a crier, but yeah, hearing those things is, exactly what you need to hear sometimes to give you the courage to keep talking about it.
Yeah, I know it's not easy. I know it's not, and so thank you, because you just continue sharing, because it really does make a difference. And even just being 19, that's something I got to think about down the line, and from my family history. So yeah, thank you, Allyn, for being such a great role model on so many levels, so many, for us watching. So the root of mental illness is often, if not always, a complexity issue. We lose a job, a loved one, a relationship ends suddenly, and life becomes almost unbearable. How did you deal with the complexity of your life without it stopping you from living? With regards to that question, do you want me to ask it again?
No, I got it, I think.
You got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think how you manage those situations is realizing that sometimes you can't necessarily fix the problem or the root of the cause. So if you lose your job, you can't always run back into the boss, call him a jerk, and get your job back. You have to find other things in your life that either, I think, replace that loss, or that you find joy and contentment and motivation in. So I've lost my job before, and I know how devastating and embarrassing that is, to be in a situation like that, or to go through a really challenging breakup. Been there, done that, and really I think relationships in particular, because they become such a part of you, and if you really love deeply, they can be devastating, and it almost feels like you've lost a limb losing that person. But I think it's just one day at a time, one foot in front of the other. And there's this quote. My mom left me her journals, and a lot of them, when I go through them, it's a very emotional thing for me to kind of read her words and when she was going through either the first time she had cancer, the second time she had cancer. But there was one line where she wrote about after she had her first cancer diagnosis. She'd had a mastectomy, but there was still some residual cancer, and she was going through radiation. And she said, she was a marathon runner, that every day that she went running, she repeated in her head, left, right, don't die, don't die. And oh gosh, that thing just hit me straight in my heart when I read that, because, and I think I wrote about this in my blog too, some days you're so caught up in these little things in your life, and being concerned about this and that. And I thought, what must it be like to have a cancer diagnosis and she was 20, in her late 20s, at her first diagnosis, and to go running and wonder if this was going to be the last time she'd ever get to jog. But here she was, just putting one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, and finishing these marathons, finishing these races. And I think that's just how you have to attack life, because it's not always going to go the way that you want, and it's just putting one foot in front of the other and moving on to the next thing, and that's all you can do.
Oh my gosh, your mother was so wise. I think that that's so true, and that approach of just full on running to the finish line, a way of life that you've clearly adopted too. It's just, I think that also gets us through those times of unsureness, those times of not feeling 100%, just running and going for it. Not just left, one foot in front of the other. That is the way to live, quote unquote, happy life, the best life you could possibly have. It's not all happy, but certainly. I think if you live that way, you at least come as close as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm biased, but I think my mom was such an amazing, dynamic woman and so brave.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get wrapped up in your own problems and things that are going on in your life. But if I really need a good head check and some perspective, I think about my mom's life and all of the things that she juggled in life and the challenges that she faced. And she still managed to be positive and happy and put one foot in front of the other and live life. And just when I feel sorry for myself, I think that's a motivating thing, is there's somebody else who's got a hell of a lot worse than you do, and you just need to pull yourself up and move forward.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because I agree with that 100%. I've actually started doing that with my mom too, even just people, you come across online like you too. It's like, okay, if they have all this stuff, that's like not even as much as I've got. Okay, I can do it too. I can do it. All right.
Right.
It's like the dish analogy. It's like maybe I can't do the whole dishwasher. I don't have to do the whole dishwasher. I only have to do 5, so I can do it. It's fine. It's good. They made it through the whole dish. They cleaned all the dishes, but I cleaned only 5, and I can do that.
No, and that's when I was telling you about my friend Jordan Page. Shout out to her again. She always has these great little wise tidbits, and one of the things was always just do 10 minutes of something, because you can do 10 minutes of anything. Yeah. And she has, oh my gosh, I think she's on her 5th or 6th child. Wow. And Jordan is, I think, 32. I want to say somewhere around that range. She's had one kid after the other. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, if Jordan Page can have 5, 6 children and a husband and a great career, I can do anything for 10 minutes. So if she's doing it, I can do it. I love that. So I think too, yeah, having those aspirational figures in your life, and you're like, okay, if that girl's juggling 800 things, what's my excuse?
Yeah, exactly. No excuses.
Yeah, no excuses for yourself. Be tough.
Yeah, I agree. The less excuses, I've noticed too, like the less excuses I make for even the mental health issues I have gone through, like instead of making that an excuse, I make it like a reason to keep going, like a reason to just keep moving forward. So yeah, that's really important.
No, absolutely. And like you said, you know, I think it's good to have the no excuses mentality with yourself, and to also surround yourself with people who are like that.
Yes.
Because while on the one hand, it's great to have somebody who's empathetic when you're struggling, and I think that's the balance, is having friendships and having relationships where people know, okay, maybe here in the beginning, I need to deal with this person with this kid gloves, and to be sweet and understanding and kind when someone's really in the depths of the dark place. But at some point, you have to have a friend that says, okay, you're a champ, buck up and act like it. And my friends have been really great with that. And I think when your friend is saying, okay, boohoo time is over, let's move on, it snaps you out of it, and you say, okay, you're right. I've struggled with this thing in my life, but how am I going to climb out of it? What are the constructive steps I'm going to take to move on?
Yeah, that's amazing. You guys watching, that is so important. Like, probably one of the most important takeaways for you to apply right away after watching this video, or even right now, is to surround yourself or reconnect with those people in your lives who live with no excuses and are the ones for you that don't let you get away with no excuses. But then there's also those people that need to be empathetic. Oh my gosh, Allyn, that is so important. I'm so glad you said that, because striking that balance, I don't think anyone's really talked about that yet either, is so crucial for mental health, like for the rest of your life.
No, definitely. And I think I have the reputation of being the tough friend. And sometimes I think, oh man, I'm being a little too tough on people and I'm not being understanding enough. But I think it is important in your life to surround yourself with people who aren't just going to let you wallow in it. Because it's easy to do that. And it's easy to surround yourself with a group of yes men who just say, oh yeah, that's so terrible, or oh, that relationship is awful, or blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you need that friend that says, hey, you have a responsibility in moving yourself to the next step of your life, because they can't do it for you. It's like the old saying, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And the only person that can move you to the next chapter of your life is you. And when you have people in your life who are positive and motivating like that, I think that is invaluable.
I agree. I think it's part of our success as an individual to be able to do that ourselves and not have to rely on anyone else to do that for us or validate, like you said, the boo-hoo syndrome or whatever. The poor
right. So I always say like the boo-hooing, but it's so true. I mean, I think we can all relate to that, where you have the moment where, I mean, for instance, I was just in this competition with Sports Illustrated, and it was my dream to be featured in the magazine. And
I made the top 16, and that was amazing, but I didn't end up making it to the top 6 and moving on to be featured in the magazine. And that was devastating to me. But I took a little time, I boo-hooed about it, and then I said, okay, what's next?
Awesome.
And it would have been so easy to just throw myself in the depths of despair over this, because, I mean, it's Sports Illustrated. This is a huge dream. It's like almost getting the chance to walk the runway of Victoria's Secret Angel. I mean, it's just this unfathomable dream. And it was so real, and I could almost taste it. You know, I could see the finish line, and here I am sprinting for my life, and then the competition was over, and I didn't get to cross the finish line. And so even those big moments where it is disappointing, you take a few moments, but then you find the next goal. And I've lost a lot in life. I didn't win Miss America, didn't win Miss USA, didn't win a lot of things, but you just find a new goal. And I think that's the only way you can handle those situations, is allotting yourself a time to feel sorry for yourself and then move on.
Totally agree. That's the way to do it. The more... Allyn?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit there.
No problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, the more you do, like, you can't just, you know, you fail once, you can't stop. You gotta just keep on going despite all that failure. And it's like, you know, it's better to fail running your race, like full out, one foot in front of the other with that don't die energy, than it is to, you know, maybe walk a bit and stop and, you know, mosey around and then maybe not finish. Like, at least the failure that you've experienced in your life has been from a place of absolute, like, boldness and courage and commitment to making that a reality. And I think for mental health, like, it's funny because it's like goal setting and success and all this kind of stuff. It is important to your mental health to have that attitude in whatever you do, no matter how big or small. So it's great that you have had that and continue to have that and continue to follow up with that even when you face failure, because I think that's when it counts the most.
Well, sometimes I think that maybe I just have no shame and I don't get embarrassed by things, because I have a lot of friends. I always encourage people to participate in pageants. I think that they're a life-changing experience, win, lose, or draw. And I have a lot of friends who they don't talk about them competing. They don't say whether they've won or lost. They don't share that because they're I don't know, I guess they're intimidated by the situation. They don't want to be embarrassed by saying that they failed. But for me, I don't think I ever really had that. And if I had spent my life being embarrassed of my failures and having them stop me from moving on to the next chapter, all of the best things in my life would not have happened.
Wow.
So when I lost Miss USA, if I had said, okay, let me hang it up, I wouldn't have been able to compete at Miss DC. I wouldn't have been able to go to Miss America. When I lost Miss America, if I had said, okay, that's it, I wouldn't have been able to represent the United States in the Supranational pageant.
Wow.
You know, I lost in the Supranational pageant. You know, if I hadn't had the courage to say, okay, you know, I'm 30, I've had both of my breasts removed, I'm covered in scars, I could never do the Sports Illustrated thing, I never would have submitted my video online, I never would have made the top 16, I wouldn't have had, you know, the opportunity to start the self-examgram or to meet new people or to be able to give a TED Talk or to do X, Y, and Z. And they were all catapulting myself from the last failure.
Wow.
And if we really look at our life, it's very rarely a pattern of successes.
Yeah.
It's most of the time failures that move us on to the next chapter. And then at some point, if we're lucky, we get the big win in the end.
Wow.
And so I'm hoping my big win comes at some point, but I'm also trying to have a positive look on my life and to say, hey, I didn't win, but at least I was in the arena. So there are people who would chew their arm off to get to do the things that I did. They would chew their arm off to lose this competition. Yep. So I just need to be grateful that I'm in the ballpark.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love that. And it's so true. And for you guys watching, you're in the ballpark of life. You're in the arena of life. And you're here. Like, you're alive. And that is the most amazing opportunity to make something of your day. And even if it's just putting those 5 dishes away, even if it's just doing a little bit of your hobby, even if it's taking one small action, even if it's getting up from failure when you've failed day in and day out and continuing to push through whatever that is you're experiencing, even if it's within your own recovery from your mental illness or struggles, know that it's going to be so worth it in the end, because just like Allyn said, the greatest things in your life will come from that. So keep that in mind and stay strong.
No, that, what you just said, I think is the foundation of motivation in life, really. And it could not be, I think, a better place to sort of end a conversation like this, because you're lucky to be alive. Every day that you are alive is a gift. Yeah. And when I was considering having my preventive surgery, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, my body's going to look different. What about this? What about this? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, God, my mom would give anything to be alive, right? She'd remove any part of her body. She'd give up both of her breasts, take her arms and legs off, shave off all of her hair, to be here for 10 more minutes with her children and her family and her friends. And how dare I have this vanity that's keeping me from doing something that might save my life? That how blessed I am to be healthy and breathing air and really just being on this earth. Yeah. And if you're able to have that perspective and to say, man, waking up and having lungs to breathe and legs to walk, I mean, all of these things are a gift. And I'm so blessed. I think it's hard to struggle mentally if you have that kind of perspective.
Yeah, I agree. It that mentality and attitude towards life, that we're all super, super lucky to be here. And I know it's like such a cliche, but having that attitude of like the fact, and even like listing out the reasons too, like I think is a great exercise for people to take away from as well. Like listing reasons why you're lucky. Okay, I've got air I can breathe. I can use my words to help make a difference in other people. Whatever the reasoning is, even for you guys, write it down. List the reasons why being here is amazing, why being alive is amazing, why it's such an amazing opportunity today to make something, whatever that is for you. Take a step forward, make a difference in someone else's life. And live the life that you've been given to its absolute fullest, and having mental health consistently a part of that, making that a habit and routine for you, is going to contribute so much to your life, as you've seen with Allyn. The way that she has conducted herself and her failures and her struggles, that is the most amazing attitude to have. So just go forward and think about that, and remember Allyn's story, or even maybe talking about this sparked something from your life, a person in your life, or a story in your life, or something that you've heard that can help you move forward and help you recover from whatever you are going through right now, and just continue to go forward. So thank you so much, Allyn, for just coming on the call and sharing your wisdom. Oh my gosh, I could honestly talk to you forever. You're amazing.
I know, I feel like we're best friends already.
Yes, I know.
You're a positive person, and you make people feel so good. I know I told you this before, but I would love to hire you to walk around and be my hype woman, because you are so great at that. And I think, you know, what you were just saying, listing those positive things in your life, you can use the micro to-do list, like we said before. Yes. You break it down to the cellular level of life, you know, how lucky you are that the blood is pumping through your veins, and that you've got air to breathe, and a warm place to sleep, and food on the table, and you'll be shocked by how much abundance you have in your life if you really take it down to these small levels of all the gifts that you're given.
Yeah, totally agree.